Melanie, we don't have any boys here. We're not hearing you guys.
Still can't hear you say that.
This is causing all the feedback.
Probably shut that off.
Nick, are you more tech savvy than me? Can you fix my feedback?
I could probably do it, but I don't. Okay, Rick, can you hear us now?
Yes.
Perfect. So start with this portion of the public comment, and of course, we're trying to figure out this whole hybrid thing. So if you're watching remotely or participating remotely and you would like to be acknowledged, if you go to the bottom of your screen and click, you're going to see a little spot that says reactions. You can use that part, and there is a raise your hand reaction. So Rick, it's probably going to be most important for you tonight so that I don't miss you. So if everybody can do that, what that'll do is that will bring you up to the top left of my screen, and I'll try to navigate it all, but if I don't, somebody will tell me somebody has their hand raised. So public comment, that is the portion of the meeting where if you have something that you'd like to bring to the select board's attention that may or may not be covered on this evening's agenda. That's the part where we bring some stuff forward. And it's nice because it's the way that we find out about issues or things that are concerning the residents that we may not be privy to seeing on a day-to-day basis. So that being said, is there anyone here or anyone participating remotely who has something that they would like to bring to the board's attention? All right, seeing that, we'll move right along to old business. I'll take a motion up for that.
So be it.
What's that? So you may- Yeah. Did you say this? Okay. Yes. This is gonna be good. All right, that is moved and seconded, and that is open for discussion. So does anybody have anything on the August 3rd select board meeting minutes that needed to be redone or tweaked a little?
No, we're trying to.
I think you would have a conversation back and forth. Or an email, and straighten most everything out.
Perfect. Rick, did you have anything else on that? No? All right, seeing none. Ricky, what's your pleasure?
Yes.
Barbara?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
All right, 4 yeses. All right, next up, we have the discussion and consideration of nomination process. So as many of you know, there's a select board seat open. There's in March of 2024. And so we had two options. One was to do nothing and wait until our normal time and doing nomination papers before town meeting. That's a really long time to have a shortened board. So the state allows in, if there's a resignation on the select board, to, if there is an election or some sort of a vote coming up, that you can do a shortened process. So that's what we are doing here. So I'm glad you filled this one in, Anthony, because I filled my one in at home to read from. So the reasons that we can do this, the extent of a shortening is permitted. The municipal officers can shorten the period for the availability of nomination papers to as few as 10 days before the filing deadline. And they can shorten the filing deadline itself to as few as 14 days. Therefore, the total time from the first day of availability of nomination papers until the day before election day can be shortened to as few as 24 days. And this is done, it's even more important that the clerk must meet the date established by the municipal officers for the availability of papers than under the usual 40 days. As fewer days are available for the circulation. So the municipal officers period for the availability and for the time between the filing deadline and election day for the vacancy to be for which the period is shortened. That is statute 30-A MRS subsection 250-25-28-4 subsection E. So moving that along, the town of Belgrade, notice of shortened nomination process. The select persons of the town of Belgrade hereby give notice that they have ordered -A MRS subsection 25284 subsection E, that a short nomination process be used to fill a vacancy on the board of select persons. The schedule for nominations will be as follows. Nomination papers will be available beginning on August 2021. Signed nomination papers must be returned to the town clerk by the close of business hours on September 29, 2021. Any questions regarding the nomination process shall be directed to the town clerk, Mary Vogel, at 207-495-2258 or in person at the town office at 990 Augusta Road, Belgrade. There.
Make that motion. Second.
Yes. So I'll make that motion. You seconded it. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none. Barbara,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Yes,
yes, it's set. All right, next we have the discussion and consideration of one, asking the Maine Department of Transportation to lower speed limits entering the village and on Main Street in Belgrade. And two, installing digital speed signs on speed limit signs entering the village. Once again, that was brought forward at public comment. We maybe thought there was an issue, but we didn't know quite as much, and now we're like, "Ta-da, there's an issue." So I'll take a motion to open that item. That item is open for discussion. Anthony, do you want to preface this or?
Well, of course, you heard from Mr. Mitchell at the last meeting, and please correct me, Bill, if I screw this up in any sort of way. But my understanding was that Mr. Mitchell suggested three things. One was reducing the speed limit on Main Street from 25 to 20 miles an hour. And that is not something that the select board has the authority to do, but you do have the authority to ask the Maine Department of Transportation to study and consider that, and ultimately it would be the DOT's decision. The second thing was tapering speed limits entering the village from the south, where it goes from 55 all of a sudden to 35. And Mr. Mitchell suggested a buffer zone of 45 miles per hour between those. And again, that would require a DOT study and a change or decision by the DOT. And lastly was to add some digital speed signs to the speed limit signs on each end of the village. And I spoke with DOT traffic engineer Dave Allen about this. And he said that the DOT really doesn't endorse that practice because they like those digital speed signs to move. Otherwise, motorists stop paying attention to them at a certain point. He suggested a better option would be putting the flashing LED lights on those speed signs like you see on the interstate sometimes when it goes from like 70 to 65. He says that captures people's attention a little better. He estimated the cost per sign for those, including the new post, the installation of those digital LED signs would be about $2,000 each. So it's not inexpensive, but it's not prohibitively expensive. And so, Bill, did I sum that up correctly?
Anthony, did you happen to ask them about the barriers like they have about the Route 811 split, putting those down?
I did not, but that is something that you had mentioned to me, so do you want to?
I mean, it's something to talk about because they can be put up and down seasonally,
Mhm.
especially in summer when we get a lot of seasonal traffic. I'm telling you, when you make it look like you're narrowing up the travel lanes, people tend to slow down because they don't want to bump the car and stuff.
Yeah, well, and I sent you guys a link. Mount Vernon recently added some of those on one of their streets. And I know during construction, you may recall, the Pratt and Sons put those signs on the center stripe, just warning about pedestrian crossing. And I agree with you. It seemed to slow people down just because it seemed like the lanes were a little narrower than they actually are.
Yeah, and I drove in Mount Vernon recently, and I wondered, because our posts in the center line, but then also at the side of the road, And it seemed quite narrow for, I mean, and I know that it's on both sides of the marked lane, but I thought, oh my gosh, could a big truck really get through there? But I guess they can.
Because I mean, they are on the marked lanes.
Yeah, I know.
It makes it look like it narrows up a lane.
Yeah,
They use them in construction sites quite often because it makes it look like it's narrowed up.
yeah.
So,
And so I don't know, with the ones that are at Route 8 and 11, that's a longer stretch than probably what we would need in the village just because of all the driveways.
yeah, I mean, you'd have to probably split some up.
Yeah,
Put some as you're coming into the village. If there's a stretch in the middle where you could get away with it, there's no driveways that come out. You know,
Yeah.
break it up a little bit.
so I don't know what the advantage is of the ones that, like the ones that are on 8 and 11 as opposed to the ones that are in Mount Vernon.
I know the ones on 8 and 11 aren't for that. They try to get people to turn where they're supposed to turn.
Oh, I know.
But they use the same type, those same ones in construction sites to designate lanes and they'll make it look like you're narrowing them up. So you could do the exact same thing
Uh,
down there with it too.
And so that one would just be in the center, there wouldn't be one on
Wouldn't
the outside.
necessarily have that. So if you've got cars packed in parking spaces, you're already making it look narrow.
Yeah.
So,
So I guess my only worry with putting something like that, an actual barrier, even if it's mostly intended to be visual down in the village, is when folks are parked on the side of the road. So say those are in the middle, folks already tend to from the parking ones, so they're a little more towards the middle. So is that gonna force people to go a little bit closer to the cars that are parked on the side?
probably gonna force them. Opening the car, has a car door. And just like downtown Augusta, you only do so much with the pack.
Right.
Can't fit through, you have to leave them.
So would you think doing that in lieu of doing something else, doing that in the interim, if we're contemplating signs that would potentially be $2,000 a sign?
I would check with the DOT and see what it costs, for what was put up there. And yearly what it costs to take them down in the winter for plowing, and put them back up in the spring. You know, if that may be a first step to see if that works, it's less expensive. If it works fine, if it doesn't, then we may have to go on to the lit signs.
But we should look into the cost of both of them because
Yeah.
the ones in Mount Vernon, it's just, each time they have it, it's just 2 posts
Mhm.
in the center and then 2 on
Yeah.
the side right opposite. And that seems like that might work well, just given all the traffic, in and out of driveways in the village and crosswalks and so forth. Just to have a few, maybe one at the lower end and one near the upper end.
Yeah, instead of a study line, like what's the least amount that DOT could do for that? And
It's just find out on costs and stuff.
Could file a
yes,
challenge.
so what we're having folks do, just because of this whole hybrid thing, is stand if you're gonna speak and just state your name so that folks in the home know who you are too.
Craig Alexander, live down in the village. That's not a bad idea. But I think just on the hills as you're coming in, because once people slow down, they're not speeding out. So if we can slow them down, from the dairy bar down over that hill and then coming the other way down into the village, that would be suspicious. I don't think we need it down in the village. So slow them down, they're not gonna speed up. I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, just see what the DOT has to say.
Yes,
Good evening. I'm Bill Mitchell. I was here a couple of weeks ago to speak with you folks about kind of teed up this issue. Very appreciative, first of all, that you put it on the agenda. And it sounds like there's some interest in trying to slow traffic down in the village. As I mentioned, I think we've met on Main Street. Sometimes I have the yellow house across the other side. And so I have, as I told you the other night, I have a front seat view of what goes on in the village. I like the thought process there, but I think there might be another alternative to that. That might be more aesthetically pleasing, given all the amazing work that's been done in the village. They make these pedestrian walkway signs that, as I've observed that cars don't stop for pedestrians in the sidewalk. And this has been happening now. I've been standing on Main Street quite a bit lately, particularly at the radar sign. Just trying to watch. You probably think I have too much time on my hand, but just trying to get a gauge of what 25 miles an hour, 30, 35 miles an hour feels. You know, we sit there and we think, oh, that seems like about 25 or 30, 35. I will say that I think that putting that device in the village has helped on average to lower speed a little bit, which is the goal, right? And at least I think that's the goal. Although I'll tell you, some people still plow right through. I observed a Mack truck just a couple of days ago, coming right down through town, 37 miles per hour, until he saw me taking pictures of him. And then he quickly hit his brakes and slowed down to a more controlled speed. And so trying to figure out, you know, what's the easiest way to go about doing this and having the most effective results, right? I still think trying to urge slower traffic coming in from either end of the village is something we should really push the DOT on. I'm more inclined to tell, not ask. I think the town, if you guys agree with this, should say, look, this is what we want. You know, we're not asking, we're telling you this is what we want. And if they don't agree, then I think we go to the next level. We go to the governor and bring her right into the village, and she can come right in and see her for herself and see if we can get something going there. But that's kind of one of those, you play that card if you have to. But I think that slowing traffic down as it approaches the village, 55 to 35 is a big leap of reduction. And most people, I think it's like, whoa, I gotta slow it down here a little bit. By that time, it's, you know, you're still going, 50 miles an hour by the time you get to the, the next speed limit sign. So if we put a couple of incremental signs, and I don't think that's asking for much at all from the DOT. I like the idea of lights, and if the Nichols were here tonight, they would tell you they would agree with that. A long-standing family in the village, 50, 60 years, tell you they agree with that as well. Flashing lights on the 25 mile per hour speed limit signs as we get right in close to the village. I agree, people come around the bend by Good Pie and the other way, and they're cruising. You guys see it, you're in the village plenty. But it's pretty routine. And I think as I was observing the other day on Sunday at the farmer's market, people, and it's not for me, people not stopping. They just keep going. So it occurred to me that if we put 4 of those up, one at Good Pie, one at Union Church, one at the Resource Center, and one at the Days Crossing, would be spaced appropriately through the village. They're not really an eyesore. They're pedestrian friendly. And I think given the points that were being made here earlier about feeling like the lane is narrowed down, that's exactly what's going to happen, is they'll feel like they have to stay at a slower speed as they work their way through town. I think these things are inexpensive. They're easy asks of the DOT. And I would think if the town agrees and endorses an approach like that, there's no reason for them to say no. And if they say no, I think we should take a position and come right back at them and say, we really want this. Assuming you folks agree and vote in favor. That would be my recommendation.
Bill, do these signs go in the center, in the center lane, right in the middle?
Right on the stripe area of the crosswalk.
Right, okay.
Right there. So you're gonna accomplish 2 things with those. I think it's gonna be very clear that, hey, you gotta stop for pedestrians crossing the street. And I'm sure you guys go into the village on Sundays. It's packed. There's people everywhere. And cars just keep pushing through. Barbara, you're there every Sunday. I see you all the time.
Yeah.
So it's a real issue. And I very much appreciate you folks taking this up. And hopefully we can come up with some ideas that are acceptable for everybody at the town and the DOT to improve safety in the village. Thank you.
Another question we should probably ask DOT, Anthony, I'm sure you've got a list going there, is whether or not if we put something on the center line, delivery trucks need to be able to get through. So will they still be able to get to where they need to be if, say, there's one in front of Days, or, we'll want to make sure that if we do something like this, that we're not also hindering the business's ability to have stuff delivered.
The crosswalk is south of Days, so it's not right at Days. So I think that one should be okay. I can't really speak to the other ones.
And if I may, I haven't spoken to Diane about this issue at Days specifically, but if you remember at the last meeting, the Days folks were, all of which were in favor of slowing traffic down in the village. I'd be more than happy to talk with her about whether that particular thing would be acceptable to her, but I would say.
To me, these accomplish the same thing as putting the
Right.
post barriers like in the middle of
Yeah.
the city. It's basically the same thing, only, yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with these.
Yeah, I think that this would be the way to start.
Yeah,
But also the tapering, because since you mentioned that 2 weeks ago, every time I go through the village, which is almost every day, I look at, usually I come from the north, and that seems to me more obvious. It goes from, I think it's 45, and then, it's 25, but there's a flashing light at 25, and then, speed too fast for curve,
Right.
which, I mean, I think you have to be going 20 to not set that off, I don't know. But coming from the south, I could see a 45 sign before the
Community
Center,
sign.
before the Center for All Seasons.
Mhm.
And then have the 35 sign a little further to the south than it is now.
Mhm.
And village area, I don't know, village area to me isn't the same as congestion, or it seems like there's a stronger word that sign could be replaced with. Village area, I don't know, that just sounds quaint and not urgent.
I would agree, Barbara. I don't, that village area sign is meaningless to me as a driver. Okay, I'm coming into the village area. What does that mean? But if I see a 25-mile-per-hour speed limit, I know exactly what that means.
or can we add a sign to the village area one that says slow down? Village area, slow down. Can you put 2 signs like that on the DOT pole?
Yeah, I can't think of where the 25-mile-an-hour sign is
Very close.
compared to
Yeah,
village
well,
areas.
the 25 is closer to 55.
Yeah, just as you're
It's closer to 55.
But I
The
would,
village sign is out a little ways before that, like around 5 times.
yeah, I mean, I would be in favor of the tapering from the, especially from the south, that if it goes from 55 to 45 to 35, then you have ample room. I think it's too quick the way it is now.
I think if you're gonna make the request of the DOT, though, it should be in both directions. It'll be interesting, because I saw you rotated that. Do you know that?
What's that?
The sign, the radar sign
Mhm.
has now been rotated. I figured you knew that. And so I'll watch it. I mean, traffic goes fast. So I think if we're gonna take this approach, it ought to be reduced, step down in both directions. But I'll stand up and take a look at it.
Yeah, we always put on one side of the road to get drivers going one way, then switch over to the other side to catch drivers.
And what about the 25 to 20? I thought that DOT, because it's a through road, DOT was unlikely to
I know,
consider
I know
20
really
miles.
well. We couldn't get them to reduce the speed limit by the ball field entrance between here and Lumber. We wanted to bring that speed limit down closer to what we have out here. and there's no way.
I mean, if people would drive, if we could get people to drive 25, then it seems to me that 25 is a more realistic expectation than 20.
Well, as I mentioned at the last meeting, if you just think of your own driving behavior, whatever the speed limit is, we all usually go 5 to 10 miles per hour over the limit. So the average speed in the village is 32, 30, 32, sometimes 35,
37.
37. You've seen it too.
Yes.
I know Rita's mentioned she's seen it. Rita is my neighbor in the village.
Walk my dogs every evening, and it's ridiculous how fast people are going. And one night I was in the crosswalk, they were stopping for me going southbound, but they didn't stop going northbound. And it's a good thing I had my dogs tight, or they were clueless that I was even there.
All right, so we should get a cost on these.
And by the way, I want to reiterate, at the last meeting, I said I would be happy to contribute some money towards this. And at that meeting, I think I offered to contribute $4,000 towards this. I'm happy to still do that.
All right, thank you. We appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Does any-
Worst case, pay for those, I mean, if you want, we can get DOT to install the flashing lights, that would jump on either end, I mean.
Yeah.
Would be something to consider.
So I'll contact Dave tomorrow. He's usually pretty responsive, and as soon as I get a response, I'll share it with you.
And I guess we'll be bringing this back to our September 7th. Is
So,
that our next meeting? All right, is there any more discussion on that?
I just have one more thing to say. Since Bill spoke to us 2 weeks ago, I have been very conscious of my speed going through the village. And I drive, much to the consternation of some other drivers, I drive at 25 now. And I just think that the more attention we bring to this, through newsletters, through town social media, whatever, you know, the more people become aware of it. And now I feel like, I don't know, I feel like I'm the, you know, the self-appointed, you know, traffic slower, you know, because I really do now, as soon as I come from the north.
So you're the pace car?
I slow, yeah, I slow down to 25, I'm the pace car, you got it.
I enjoy people going through here all the time, because I drop down to 40 miles an hour, and people get right up on the back of me.
That,
But I think it's just awareness, and I realize that there are a lot of people who don't live in Belgrade who drive through, and, you know, they probably like to drive pretty fast through. But if we Belgrade residents can set the example, then maybe we'll follow it. Or at least we'll have to, while one of us is on.
Right.
multiple ways to do this. Thank you all for listening,
All right.
and considering this tonight.
You're
Thank you.
welcome. All right, next up on the agenda, we have new business. So the first we have is the acceptance of 2 resignations. One is a resignation by Corey Alexander from the Board of Appeals. Take a motion on that.
I'll make the motion to accept that.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none. Ricky?
Yes. This, you know, this voice thing really doesn't sound good out in the public. Hope you guys know.
You're not taking selfies in your bathroom, Ricky.
Okay.
Whatever else we have to. All right, Dan?
Yes.
All right, 4 yeses. All right, next up, we have the resignation of Christine Markins as our health officer. Take a motion.
Make that motion.
And a second. Second. Moved and seconded. So for discussion. Seeing none. Ricky?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
All right, 4 yeses. All right, sorry to see you folks go. All right, next up, we have board committee appointments. First up, we have Jennifer Clements for the health officer position. Jennifer is here. This is a new appointment. So then I was like, I'm seeing you on Facebook. Yeah, sure. All right, so do you want to tell us why you want to do this? Put you on the hot seat.
Well, I grew up here. My kids go to school here. I have devoted the last decade in public service, and as a nurse, I really enjoy helping others. So I feel like I would be a good fit.
Do you have a plan for the next wave of COVID? What are your thoughts there?
That's something I have to discuss with the CDC on what their recommendations are, but would be to follow their recommendations as well as what our school district is going to follow. So we would definitely be open for discussion. Learning curve, since I've never been involved in any type of pandemic before.
100%. Does anyone have any questions for Jennifer? All right, seeing none, I will take a motion to.
I'm going to abstain. So this,
So moved.
Well, it's not a conflict of interest if there's not a monetary value to you.
right, but it's still, it's. I'll let you guys do the vote.
Okay.
I move we accept the application.
All right, I'll second it. So any further discussion? All right, seeing none, Ricky?
Yes.
Dan is abstaining, 3 yeses, 1 abstention. Welcome aboard. Thank you.
Thank
Jennifer.
you.
All right, next up, we have Nicholas Alexander, who surprisingly, there's an open seat on the Board of Appeals. I'm shocked. All right, so Nicholas, would you, actually, I need to open up, right? Let me open that.
So be it.
Tell us why you would like to do this.
Yes, because I'm involved in my community in many different ways. Especially, I was involved with Pine Tree Camp, as many of you know, for many years, and I just want to extend that to the town of Belgrade.
So now, have you talked to people and you know a lot about what the Board of Appeals does?
Yes,
And you're ready for those emails?
yes.
All right, is there any discussion? Seeing none, I will make a motion that we accept Nicholas Alexander's application to the Board of Appeals.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Ricky,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
4 yeses, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Okay, so no complaining, right? If you bite off more than you can chew, you can ask for help, okay? Because that's probably what we all do. It's a heck of a learning curve. And you couldn't have picked like an easy board or something, right?
But it had to be hybrid, so that was the only choice.
All right, next up, we have Victoria Alexander to the Board of Parks and Recreation. Is Victoria here? Sorry. I just thought it was your entourage, Nicholas. All right, Victoria, would you tell us, do you go by Victoria? or
I do,
Okay, I didn't know if you went like Tori or anything. So tell us why you'd like to be on the Board of Parks and Rec?
Sure, I was asked to consider being part of the Board of Parks and Recs, and I do want to get more involved in like our community government. I'm currently one of our Belgrade Girl Scout leaders, so I am involved in our community, but not part of town government, so.
There's a seat open on the board too.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, that was short and sweet. All right. Does anybody have any questions for Victoria? Saying none, I will take a motion. So move to accept.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Ricky,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
4 yeses. Welcome aboard. I don't know. Is there gonna be a trifecta or something? You two aren't gonna collude, right?
No.
No. You're gonna work on your poker face. All right, next we have Caitlyn Thibodeau for the Board of Parks and Recreation. Is Caitlyn here? Yes.
Yes.
Caitlyn, would you tell us why you'd like to be on the Board of Parks and Recreation?
So my husband and I both grew up here, actually, went to school, Jenna. Right now, we're currently raising our 3 kids here, and I'm very involved in the school with volunteer work, and I enjoy doing different things with kids within the community because I like them to stay here. We all want to keep our kids close to home, but they're also our future. So being able to get them more involved within the Parks and Rec, department, all different activities, just I think would be really helpful. Plus it's nice to have a say in the events that my kids attend and kind of what goes on within the town. And like I said, I'm more volunteer, for the school, still with children, but I work for Maine Municipal Association as well. And the town of Belgrade is my jurisdiction. So it's just nice to kind of get out there, get to know members a little bit. Kind of take a peek at municipalities. Watch you guys.
I'm over here like, and there's a mom, there's kids in the school system, and there's an empty seat on the board.
If I knew what I was doing, maybe.
Nobody knows what they're doing when they first start. There's a serious learning curve, but it's an underserved, it is an underserved population by the select board. My kids, I held that role for a long time, being a mom of kids in the school system who use the rec programs and the school, but we don't have anyone now, because mine are all out of the school system. So if you know, you please know of anybody who's kind of in that, you know, it'd be nice to have a mix of folks maybe put in for that seat.
Okay.
All right, does anyone have any questions? Let's see none, I will make a motion that we accept Caitlyn Thibodeau's appointment for the Board of Parks and Recreation.
Second.
Seconded, any further discussion? Seeing none, Barbara? Yes. Ricky?
Yes.
That's good. Dan?
Yes.
All right, 4 yeses, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
All right, next up, we have Doris Mathias. Hello, mademoiselle. You're muted. Are you able to unmute yourself, Doris?
Hi,
There she is. You know. All right, Doris, can you tell us why you'd like to be on the Senior Resource Committee?
oh, yes, I have been working with Spectrum Generation for probably 5 years. I think they have wonderful programs. I have a lot of elderly friends in Belgrade, and I just want to be a part of it. Seeing something happen.
For Doris? All right, seeing none, I will take a motion.
So move to accept your appointment.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Dan?
Yes.
Ricky?
Yes.
Yes,
4 yeses. Welcome aboard, Miss Doris.
thank you, Doris.
Thank you so much.
Oh, it was nice to see your face.
You too.
All right, next up, we have Gail, and I don't want to say Gail's last name incorrect. Is it Berica?
Bareka.
Berica, thank you. All right, so we have Berica. Gail, you'd like to be on the Senior Resources Committee?
Well, I have lived in Belgrade over 30 years and I previously worked at Belgrade Central School, but now of course time has marched on and I've many friends who are getting older and as I am. And I would just like to see what services and things can be brought into Belgrade for aging people who want to stay in the community because I own a home here. And I would very much like to stay in the community and I'd like to be a part of services that could help people stay in the community as they age. So that's my reason.
Does anyone have any questions for Gail? All right, then I'll make a motion that the appointment of Gail Berica.
Second.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was kind of whispering that. I was like, I think I have it.
No, that's right.
All right, so moved and seconded. No further discussion. Ricky?
Yes.
Yes.
Barbara?
Yes,
All right, 4 yeses. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Welcome. All right, and then last but not least, we have Karen McFadden. And Karen,
I'm here.
oh, hi.
Hi.
I'm like, dude, where's the next person? All right, Karen, would you like to tell us why you'd like to be on the Senior Resource Committee?
Yeah, because I'm old. And I just think we need to bring some stuff for us elderly people to this town. I'm not a resident here any longer. I do live in the summer. I go to Florida in the winter and we have a fantastic senior center there with art classes and exercise programs and all that kind of stuff. And if we could just start building something like that here in Belgrade, I think it would help all of our seniors stay connected with each other. There's a lot of lonely people here. So that's all. She's at home. And I want to use those. I like smart classes and I'd like someplace to go to talk to people.
All right, does anybody have any questions? All right, seeing none, I'll take a motion.
So move to accept Karen's appointment.
Second.
Moved and seconded.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, Dan? Barbara?
Yes.
Ricky?
Yes.
Says welcome aboard, Karen.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Just remind me. Any of these ones that have to be sworn in, should the committee be sworn in?
Yes, so those of you folks, and actually everyone who's been appointed tonight does have to make a point of coming by the town office and being sworn in. We take this very seriously.
As you should.
We should, absolutely. All right, next up, we have discussion and consideration of Senior Resources Committee bylaws. You guys didn't even know what you were getting in for, and you were like, sure, sign me up.
No, I knew.
Thank you.
All right, so the Senior Resource Committee, newly reformed committee, is met and is putting forward new bylaws. The group feels the ad hoc advisory has fulfilled its charge since its inception, and the group would like to move forward into the next stage of making the new committee permanent. So I'll take a motion to open that item.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Moved and seconded, that item is open.
Melanie, just calling your attention, Mary has raised her hand on the screen.
Perfect, because I was just gonna call on Mary, even if she didn't.
I wanted to bring to your attention there that instead of, we actually changed the bylaws. We felt that the ad hoc committee had met their charter of what their intention was for that committee. And if you look at the ad hoc committee bylaws, it does say that that when the work of the committee is complete, the establishment of a formal committee is should be established and approved of by the Board of Select Persons. We did, when creating the new bylaws, we did take the mission statement that was created initially by the ad hoc committee. And as you read down through, and I was hoping that Tasha you are there. So Tasha actually threw this all together for me. I sent her over a lot of information and she did a great job on it. We're looking to keep the committee members at 10, which would consist of both Belgrade residents, seasonal residents, and right now we would have 2, which would be Karen McFadden and Doris Mathias that you already approved of. We have ex officio people. We're looking at 2. We want Lily, who is part of the recreation department, and she is currently running some programs down there for seniors that we'd like to expand on. But we also have met with Jen from the health center, and we want to keep a partnership there, whether it be Jen or another representative from the health center. We also want to partner with the Union Church and the other local churches. But I think that, I don't know if Tasha has anything that she'd like to add to this.
I helped out with the bylaws, and I think that there can be a lot of great things that come out of the committee. And if we collaborate with other members in the community, I think it will benefit everybody aging in place.
Yeah. I think we're on our way to establishing a nice little group. We've got a lot of plans in the works, and everybody's excited about getting things going for seniors. The town of Belgrade has a lot of aging seniors right now. The number of people 50 and over has increased significantly. We have a lot of seasonal seniors that come in from out of state, and I think that will be helpful with Karen and Doris, even though they are away for part of the year, that they will be able to do things electronically. There are so many grants and things out there that we can have them working on. So I don't know if you have any other questions.
So, Mary, the town currently, what we have is a Senior Resources Advisory Committee.
Right, and we want to turn it into a formal senior resource committee.
Okay,
It was, actually, it was named the Ad Hoc Committee on Senior Resources. That was the name that it was given.
all right. Yes, completed. So we're looking for twofold. We're looking for the town to agree to form a new committee that we've just put members on.
Right, it's kind of a committee that's formed out of the other committee, and like I said, if you look at the old bylaws, you know, it does, under 3C, it does make the reference to when the work for that committee is complete, then the establishment of a formal committee should be established, so. And that's what we're looking to do here tonight.
All right, so first I'll take a motion on the formal establishment of the Town of Belgrade Senior Resource Committee.
So moved.
And a second. I'll second that. That section is open for discussion.
I think this is a valuable committee to have, and I think that they've done a lot of work as an ad hoc committee, and I think it's time for them to make the next step and become a permanent committee for the town.
Great. So any more? All right, seeing none. Ricky,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Barbara?
Yes.
All right, 4 yeses. So we now have a committee called the Senior Resources Committee. And then the second portion. Way to go, guys.
Now they have a committee to join.
Next, we have the approval of the Town of Belgrade Senior Resource Committee bylaws. I will make that motion.
Second.
Now that item is open for discussion.
The only question I've got is, how are all these different committees meeting right now? Are they coming in and using this room and Zoom?
So we have not,
Yeah, how are we set up on this thing?
we have not used the owl for anything other than select board and planning board meetings. Make it too complicated. We have had a couple of instances where some committees have met in a smaller conference room, and they've had a member who participated remotely. We just had a laptop set up in there. So, you know, we're doing our best just to accommodate each group depending upon the circumstances.
Okay. I just want to make sure, because like I said, I'm not familiar with whether we're required to do it both ways as a public committee or not.
You're not required to do it. The only requirement is that if a committee member is participating remotely, then we must offer that same remote option to the public.
Tasha has a hand up.
Oh, sorry. Thanks, Ricky. Tasha?
We had also talked about using the North Belgrade Community Center since it's not used a lot and there's not a lot of representation over here. And most of the community is older. So that building could be utilized if we could get it through Lily.
Yeah, I think we want to move our meetings around a little bit. We've only met once, and we met at the Center for All Seasons outside. So I know we're having a meeting coming up here in the next week or so, and we plan on meeting at the town office. So we want to try to move the meeting around so it's accommodating for everybody.
All right, so any more discussion on the bylaws? Ricky?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, 4 yeses.
Yay, yay.
All right, next up, we have the discussion of public water system. Oh, discussion and consideration of a city policy. So I'll take a motion to open that item. All right, I'll make that motion to open that item. Moved and seconded. All right, so do we not currently have a safety policy?
So you may recall, it's been a few months ago, you guys approved a resolution to have us participate in the Maine Municipal Association's workers' compensation insurance. And so this policy is in keeping with that program. Nick, who is joining us remotely, has been working on this policy along with a representative from MMA's workers' compensation program. And so the aim here is sort of twofold. One is obviously we want to ensure that our staff is safe in how they approach their work. And in doing so, we can also reduce the cost of our workers' compensation premiums. So this policy represents the second of 3 tiers of that incentive program. We've already earned a 5% discount on our premiums. If we adopt this policy before September the 1st, we earn a 7.5% discount on our premiums. And then next year, we're going to be working towards the 3rd tier, which would represent a 10% decrease in our premium costs.
Okay, so do we have a safety officer designated for the town of Belgrade?
We do. It's Chris Dutil.
Okay. And do we have, there are things here, like one of the pieces was initial training at a new employee orientation shall consist of things like an overview of back injury prevention, safe lifting programs. Do we have things in place like that currently?
We do not. And so that training will come from the MMA. So a lot of that can be done online. And so as part of a new employee orientation, we'll make sure that they engage in that training in keeping with this particular policy.
Okay. And is it something that folks who, everyone who's a new hire to the town will have to participate in this?
That's
or-
correct.
Okay. So even if lifting isn't part of their job?
That's correct. Because this policy covers a number of different things, including slips and falls and how to avoid those sort of things. So there's ergonomics in here for office workers. And so there's different things that is going to touch everyone on our staff. Everything in this policy may not touch everyone, but everyone will be touched by the policy.
Okay, and there were a couple of things that look like they're required, like do we have a sign currently that states wet floor?
We do.
And do we have one in every building?
I know we have one in this building. I know we have it at the center, but I'd have to check with our other buildings.
Because in kind of just reading through, I just want to make sure that, we would have everything that they're required to have. And I would assume there must, things like that would have to be at all of our locations. Anybody else have any questions on this? And who will be the record keeper?
Nick will be the record.
So Chris will do the training
Mhm.
and he'll be doing the training or he'll be making sure that the training is complete?
The latter.
Okay,
We're really going to rely on the MMA and their online library to provide the training.
And will current employees have to undergo training as
Yes.
well as new hires?
Yes.
Dan, do you have any questions?
No, I just assume this will be another, for the fire department, there'll just be another added in training when we do our yearly mandatory trainings.
Yeah, and that's a good point, Dan. Some of this can be covered during Super Sunday when the fire department does a lot of its training and the rest of us come and participate in different portions of that training.
So I'll make a motion that we consider the adoption of the safety policy.
So,
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion on it? Seeing none. Ricky?
Give it a try. Yep.
All right, Barbara?
Yes.
yep, save us some money.
For the 2.5%, that's out. All right, 4 yeses. All right, now we have the discussion of a public water system. We'll open that. Make a motion to open that item. Second. Do you have their documents from DOT? Anthony, do you have the latest document from DOT? I did not bring that with us.
I do not have it printed out at the moment. I can run to my computer and go.
Is this your computer?
It is, but that's not hooked up to our network.
Hi, guys, thank you.
Thank you.
And really, truly, so let me just say, Dan and I were chatting a week or so ago, and I mentioned that, you know, there was an idea proposed. Perhaps we put in front of the voters an article that authorizes the select board to negotiate and execute contract with the DOT for the public water system. If we're going to do something like that, then we need to get that process going for the November 2nd election. And so Dan said, well, let's just put a discussion on the agenda as far as how we might want to approach that. Is that fair enough, Dan?
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, I don't think we're gonna be able to go out with all these numbers and everything else. It's just not gonna happen until we get the approval to negotiate in the best interest of the town. Every once in a while, the people of the town have to rely on the select board that they elected to negotiate in the best interest of the town. And right now, we've done all our research and done all our due diligence. And really our only option is a water system. We're trying to get the best deal for the town to put in this water system.
We're hoping for some other folks to weigh in. Where did Ricky go?
He's still there.
This thing bounces. There he is. Okay. So what are you guys' thoughts?
See that we have a choice.
And I think one of the things is that we don't have a plan B. And does anybody?
We've tried plan Bs.
Yeah,
We've tried
we tried.
drilling wells. We've tried, you drill wells, you buy the property, or you put in a water system. And all three really, none of them are the greatest option in the world, but we have to do one.
And Melanie, I see Plan B as having a backup for the well that would be the source for this water system.
You see that, and that's my other thought, is that it's hanging out over here, that we don't have a backup for this magic vein that is tapped into, that's gonna produce X number of gallons per minute. But what we don't have is we don't have a plan for if that vein becomes compromised. And then,
And I agree with you, we don't have a plan per se, but I do think there are some options in that area of other wells that are, or other properties with owners who are friendly to the town.
so this is the part I still, and I still stress on this, I would feel more comfortable if the town went in 50-50 right out of the gate. Then it was and that the state is going to pony up. And then they're setting a lot of the guidelines for us, definitely with our input. But they want an endpoint when they're no longer part of any negotiations. And we're dug our heels in a little bit on that. I said, how about 50 years? By then, any future claim should be settled. They thought 50 years was absurd. They had originally been like 5 years after the last claim came through. So there's some other little tweaky pieces, but what are folks' thoughts on us going in half right out of the gate? And then like, Because we're still gonna be on the hook 50-50 for at least the foreseeable future, 25, 30 years. And that's, we're all gonna still be 50-50 as long as there's sand and salt being stored in that shed that's used between the two. We don't have an endpoint for when the state isn't going to store sand and salt with us or utilize that. So we still have a lot of these pieces over here that are moving parts.
That's the negotiation that we need permission to do, come up with the best deal out of it that we can get.
The 50-50 is that the state will pay for the installation of the system, all the expenses, or we split those expenses 50-50?
So the way the agreement that is being currently negotiated is that Maine DOT puts in 2.2 million. They build the public water system. And then we are obligated to create a water utility, do the monitoring, the testing, all of those pieces that, and they turn that over to the town.
And maintain it.
And we maintain it for all eternity.
Barbara,
And
just,
if we spend more than $2.2 million, too bad for us, is that?
well, and we don't think that, I mean, eventually, decades from now, that may be the case.
Yeah, it could be 70 years before we spend that kind of money.
Yeah, and so, just so you know, because you're the newest person in this conversation, the town itself wouldn't necessarily be doing the maintenance and operation of that utility. We would contract with a provider who would provide that service. And the best information that we have right now from the Maine Rural Water Association is we could anticipate, at least initially, annual cost of about $12,000.
And that's also with the assumption that an existing utility entity like Augusta or Wheatfield wants to absorb Belgrade.
Well, not necessarily, because remember that the Maine Rural Water Association provides that sort of contract service. So, you know, we may well end up, I mean, we would look at who the players are, but we may end up, you know, contracting with someone like Maine Rural Water Association. And you may recall, Melanie, the Reedfield operation isn't actually operated by the town of Reedfield. It's also a private entity that operates that for the town of Reedfield. So that's not their public works department or their water utility department or anything. It's the same sort of setup that we would be looking at.
Yeah, what we have here is small enough, so most of it's going to be remote monitored. Once a week, they'll have somebody come over and do some water sampling or whatever required.
Well, they did tell us in Reedfield that ours would end up needing to be a little bit different because the one they have in Reedfield is set up for a chlorination system, but they don't have to use it. So ours would. They said that involves a lot more testing.
Yeah, but a lot of it will be monitored. They'll have sensors and everything else, but a lot of it will be remote monitored.
Because don't they have someone who goes daily? It isn't strictly remotely monitored.
I can't recall if it was daily or not.
Yeah,
But
there's
when we
a
were talking-
physical log.
When we were talking to somebody from over here, they said that they'd be sending somebody out like once a week or whatever. Chris Dukel would go in daily to make sure there's no leaks or something going on in the building. But it's not as often for the contract person.
And just, Barbara, again, just for your information, in addition to that cost, that the real financial challenge for the town would be building a capital reserve to deal with future infrastructure costs. Say a pipe burst at some point in the future, you know, you have to go in and replace that. That's going to be the more financially challenging piece of this puzzle.
And if the salt plume moves underground and affects other properties?
That's one of the negotiating things we're talking about now, because we want them to be responsible for adding on to the system for so many years if something happens. It's part of the negotiations we're dealing with right now.
So because they build the initial infrastructure, then if it needs to be expanded, they would.
They'd be responsible for at least part of it. I don't know if they come out and pony up to do the whole add-on, but at that point, they're responsible for the salt, also responsible for adding on to it.
Because they sounded like in our negotiations, Dan, that they had no intention of being part of any add-on. But this system that they're proposing, and mind you, we're also have not even been privy to seeing like a sketch of the system, which leaves us feeling a little bit blind, like how do you negotiate something if we're not seeing even drawings of any, even rudimentary drawings of what this system would look like, where it is on the ground. Had we not gone to Reed Field and done our own investigation, I would have literally no idea what a public water supply system looked like. And we haven't seen anything.
No, but their same argument, and I understand their side of the argument too, is they want voter approval that we're moving forward with the negotiations before they start spending more money. Because the town isn't gonna allow us to do it, they don't want to spend, you know, $50,000, $75,000, $100,000 with design build plans.
And what we've held firm to is, we know they're not starting from scratch. There's plans there somewhere that they're gonna utilize. This isn't, they're not recreating the wheel we are for us, so. And that's where I feel like a little bit at a loss, because we're not ponying up half out of the gate. And so DOT's kind of holding that over Belgrade a little bit, like, so this is what we're gonna do, and we're doing all of this, and all we need is for you guys to say yes. But I feel like our negotiating power is less because we're not starting right out of the gate at 50-50 and then figure that out as we go. And, you know, and I said, I don't know if we need to do a bond or what we need to do, but I feel like I would feel like the town was on more solid footing if it was a partnership right from the beginning.
The problem with the state is like they told us though. If you want to pay 1 million and they pay $1 million or whatever it is, that's fine, they'll take it. But they will not run it, it's done.
Right.
So we might as well take the $2 million and then run it, because if we're on out, we're gonna have to spend $1 million and then we're still gonna run it.
Which I'm okay with. I mean, I'm okay with us running it, but we'd have to have some other stuff come out from the other side.
But that's the whole thing. We gotta get the voter approval to start negotiating.
I think they were thinking that an affordable, we're getting was voter approval to move forward.
Didn't you already said that?
I said, what I was gathering from them is they were looking for us to have voter approval November 2nd, not approval for negotiating, but approval for moving forward, because they would like to start in the spring.
Do we need voter approval for negotiating? Or can this-
That would be the voter approval. If we put out a warrant article for us to negotiate in the best interest of the town, that's the voter approval for us to move forward. If we can't come up with what we feel is a good deal, we'd be walking away.
So, and to speak to that, the warrant article would say authorize the select board to negotiate and execute. So once you reach the deal that the board was comfortable with, then you'd have the authority to go ahead and execute that contract.
That's why we're really elected. That's why we're elected, the state representatives are elected. They're the ones that, you know, every time they spend money, they don't bring it always back to the voters. They make the best decision they can come up with.
Right, but execute a contract that locks the town into a public water supply. I don't feel like the board should be making that decision for the taxpayers.
They wouldn't, that's what this warrant article would do. The taxpayers were simply saying, we can do it if we come up with the best, we feel we found up to the best deal for the town.
And it wouldn't be a dollar amount on it, because we wouldn't know the numbers.
Now, as we communicated that, just to inform people what
The estimated cost to run it is.
Yeah. And what the capital reserve goal would be in order to fund future years. And also just to speak to that, one thing Greenfield did that was really successful is they invested that cap reserve in really smart ways. And so now they've got more money than they can say raise over. They've never had to raise rates as a result of the capital that they built with those initial investments.
Is theirs townwide or is it for just a specific?
No, it's just like ours. It's only served a very small portion of town. And I think that was contaminated by a gas tank.
Yes, yeah, it was the gasoline additive that got into the groundwater.
It was a filling station that had some leaky tanks.
Ricky, what have you got to say? You nodded your head, so it was like, hey.
You probably don't want to hear what I got to say, but
Can you?
I don't know how you can do that. I mean, I know we're talking about November's election. I don't think you can do it by then. I think you should wait till the March town meeting when you got everybody gonna vote, usually. November, not everybody votes, unless it's a presidential thing. We don't have that this time. I probably not gonna be in favor of doing it in November, so. I'm really screwed up with the state here, how they're trying to figure this out anyways. I think they don't want anything to do with it. Once we get it, they're done, they're gone. Their hand clear. So better really think about this, which way to go. And we do need the taxpayers' approval to spend any kind of money like this. I know Dan said the state can, legislators can do that. Well, the state's a lot bigger than the town of Belgrade.
Can we maybe also just get some information on if somehow we were to pony up 1.1 million, what that would do to the mill rate? I suppose we wouldn't be able to do anything until next year's, but if we were to go in 50-50, and if we have an idea what the estimated cost per year is going to be, what fluctuation that will be with folks' taxes.
Well, it would depend upon what the payoff would be. Because think about it this way, so for the last road bond, it's about a $1 million note, we paid it off in $400,000 chunks. So it just depends upon how long we would want to take to pay it off.
Can I ask what $1 million is going to do for us though? What do you see it's going to do for us?
I guess I've just felt like we're, I feel like maybe it's, some of the information is being withheld from us because they're like, not really in at the gate. You're coming in after the fact. So we're gonna tell you how we're gonna do this, and once you all agree, then we're gonna show you a plan. So I feel like it's more like, I don't know. I guess I feel like if we're 50-50 on the issue, we should be 50-50 right at the beginning of the solution, and then 50-50 as we see it through. I know DOT does not want to help run the utility, but if we all determine that this is the best way to go, and if, you know.
Bruce is gonna hand up if you want him.
Bruce, go ahead, I'm flailing a little.
Okay, I got several things. One, my concern is all the wells that are gonna be drilled across from the cemetery area and across from the cemetery building, how that's gonna affect the aquifer, and if they're gonna get contaminated, that's part of my concern. Has any consideration been taken on that? For one, because that's gonna add more cost to the system, and is that well gonna be capable to handle that? That's one. Two, if we have further contamination, is DOT gonna back up and take on their portion, 50%, to tie on to more properties if need be? I mean, this is all stuff that I've, every time we discuss this, I bring this up every time, and everything I've been reading is once the DOT is done, they're washing their hands of everything and leaving us holding the bag for everything. And I don't think we want to go that route.
Well, legally, and DOT has said this, legally, we share in the liability of any future claims. So they can't just walk away and we're left holding the bag completely because they are still legally liable. As far as that property that's being developed across from over there, I guess from across from Craig Pooler's place, it's a storage facility, so we're unaware of any wells that are being drilled on that property at this time.
Well, it's got plumbing and radiant heat in there, so. I do know that, and I know that the property across from the cemetery, Vidya Road, that just sold, and there's 14 house lots that's up for sale there.
Yeah, well, and Bruce, you may not be aware of this, but some of the folks who've been engaged in these discussions, one of the strategies is we are going to be forming a water association that can limit the number of tie-ins to this system. And the reason for that is you don't want to overtax the source well. And so the source well is adequate enough to serve the 13 properties that have been impacted to date, plus more, but we don't want to get to the point where the well doesn't serve everyone to an adequate extent.
So just one other question, has the discussion been just the 13 properties, or does it include the cemetery also?
It does not include the cemetery at this point. We have not talked about providing potable water to the cemetery, but we could.
If we wanted to possibly put a bathroom in the maintenance building.
That's right.
And add water to that, so that there's good water there for people.
Yeah.
So that's what we talked about.
That's right.
I was talking about the whole cemetery for watering purposes. Considering we're spending a lot of money putting water lines and so on and so forth in there.
Corey?
Yeah, that property across the road that's pouring the foundation and stuff like that, doing all that work. I'm pretty sure that's going to be a car storage facility for the owner of the property just down over the hill, according to what he told me the day I was over there.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Craig Alexander. So, the possibility of, I mean, I know we got the lakes and we're going through water quality issues and stuff like that. There's no possibility of using that in any way as a water source.
Pumping right out of the lake. We tried, we asked that, we asked, what's that little pond?
The treatment from the rodeo.
Yeah, the one that the Aslan's.
The treatment of surface water, Craig, is far more involved, far more expensive than.
Kind of what I was thinking, but.
Yeah.
I know, because we wouldn't need to worry about that running out. Which,
We've been round and round and round.
So at that point, you would need a water treatment plant.
Yeah, I kind of figured that, but I'd ask.
So what are we trying to conclude tonight? Anything? Are we trying to come to some sort of action?
yeah, like any other thoughts on what we should be negotiating? I mean, do we dig our heels in and it says that we see some sort of a plan? I feel like we've mentioned it, like. There should be an attachment here, and we still don't get an attachment.
Well, I can circle back to DOT and say, do you have a preliminary engineering plan? Yeah, because we and our consultants would like to see that.
It seems reasonable that. if we're
I mean,
responsible
just
for
tell them
maintenance-
it's not gonna go to the full voters without it.
Okay.
I mean, let's start playing a little nasty here.
And what's plan B if the vein is not all it's cracked up to be? Because they've not been forthcoming with a plan B for that. And then we're still be in the same boat. Because then even once this is in place, then it's gonna start being all of the other pieces with appliances and all of that, that's gonna be, you know, we don't even have an estimated dollar cost on it. We probably should start getting together an estimated dollar cost of what's gonna be.
Well, the longer we draw this out, you know, if we start replacing appliances like we did, we're gonna be replacing them again. We keep drawing it out. The longer we do it, the more it's gonna cost the town.
Anybody else have anything?
I don't see why not to go ahead and go on for the November ballot, just to get it. If we-
Right now, I don't think we're gonna, I think we've got two that are gonna say, no, they don't particularly want it without the drawings or anything else.
Yeah.
And at least two that are gonna say yes, so right now, we're pretty much on hold.
Bruce?
Just give you guys a head up, a lot of the properties that are affected with this salt water are modular homes or mobile homes. And without main mobile home parts in Oakland, it's getting very difficult to get specific mobile home parts. I'm still got two things I gotta get for Burgess, and I am struggling to find the mobile home parts for that. I'm not giving up yet, but I'm almost at a give up on that. I don't know what we're gonna do if I can't find a source to get these parts.
Just gets bigger and bigger.
So can we ask Anthony to go ahead and urge DOT to
Yeah,
share
I'll-
plans
I'll-
with us?
I'll contact them tomorrow and say the board has to see these plans before the voters.
And is there any way we can reach out to some of the other towns that had the water systems built by DOT and find out, get a copy of their agreements, what they negotiated? Okay, kind of take a look at them and see what it says about them covering future costs if something else comes up being contaminated and everything else.
Is Reedfield one of those other towns?
It is not, that was a DEP project.
And what about Pittston?
I believe that was a DEP project too, but I'm not positive.
There's some other ones around though. You should
Yeah,
look
I mean-
at which ones are the salt contamination ones.
Yeah. I mean, frankly, I could follow freedom of information.
There should be some information on it. It'll tell you which ones they covered.
Yeah, because we really should compare.
Because we can look at
contrast
that,
them.
we can look at their negotiated contract and see what they had to say.
All right, Ricky?
What's this water association Anthony was talking about? I don't remember anything about that. What is that?
So you may recall, the first step that we had to form a water utility district, which Dan carried that legislation through the last legislative session. So that's step number one. That gives us the statutory authority to have a public water system. You can also form, and this is what the Maine Rural Water Association recommends, form a water association that would include representatives appointed by the select board and elected by the properties that are served by the water system, just to serve as a governing body of that water utility. And so they would be the ones who would set the rates, of course, with Public Utility Commission approval. But also they could determine, they could rule on request to join the system. Eye toward ensuring that, again, well, isn't overtaxed the properties that hooked up to that system.
We have that now? We have an association,
So this is something that would have to be formed.
but we don't have one yet, correct?
What it is, it's equivalent to like in Augusta, the board of directors of the water district. It's just a governing body.
Yeah, I understand that, but we do not have one yet. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So we'd have to create one.
Yeah, and Maine Rural Water Association would be our consultant on that piece of the project as well, because they've helped other communities establish these water associations.
They'd have basically a form that says, you know, this is the scope of your authority, what you have to do.
Yeah, they have a bylaw template.
Right. That's the word I was looking for.
All right, so
Okay.
oh, Mary? Mary, is your hand up?
Can you hear me now? Okay, so my question is, if you create a water association, in a sense, isn't it just like a water district and you're taxed on it? Just, so the people that are part of it are going to be now taxed on it, and we would have to set tax rates for, like Oakland does, they send out water bills, like Augusta does, they send out water bills.
So a water utility is different than, and a water association are different than a water district, Mary. A water district would be a taxing district. This would not involve taxing the property owners who are using it. Now, they would pay rates for the water that they do use, and we would try to set those rates equivalent to what the electrical cost of running a well would be over the course of a year. But you have to have a rate structure, otherwise you're encouraging people just to, you know, water their lawns, for instance, a lot more than they need to, or.
So it's gonna be another taxation set up. I'm
No.
just curious how we're gonna do that.
No, it's not a taxing district. So the operational cost of the water utility of contracting with that would be supported by the ratepayers, plus a subsidy from the town that would come through the taxes that everybody in town pays. And again, you're talking about a total cost of about $12,000 per year.
Okay, so what if they don't pay their rates? What recourse is there?
Their water is turned off. It's just as if you were part of the, let's say, the Augusta water utility. You don't pay your rates, you don't get water.
Right, okay. Yeah, I guess, you know, I know that something needs to be done, but I think that November is too early. We don't get a large enough participation in the election itself, and this is huge. And I really think that a larger number of people would participate at a town meeting. Just because you potentially are going to be binding people with tax dollars for years to come. So anyway, that's all I have to say on it. I just had the question about whether we were setting up a district, a water district. So.
So people are gonna have to pay for this water?
Yeah, what we do is to determine like your well pump. How much it costs to run a well pump for a year? Because then at this point, you won't have a well pump anymore. So you'd pay the equivalent of what it would cost you to run your well pump.
Yeah. And so Craig, that cost, the Maine Rural Water Association told us is about $120 per year. So you'd be paying about $10 a month.
But then we did talk with Reedfield, and I think essentially like a normal amount of water doesn't cost you anything extra. But say somebody puts a farm in and it's gonna be a big CSA.
You could set a minimum, you know, $10 a month for how much a normal house would use for the year. Anything over that, then you add on.
Yeah.
So much a gallon.
Say somebody's gonna go to Florida for the winter and they leave their faucets on.
Typically, water is billed at 1,000 in units of 1,000 gallons. So you pay a certain cost per 1,000 gallons. Like Dan said, after you use so much.
We basically don't want to charge the people that have these problems anymore.
So Melanie? So one of the things that when you come up with your rates, you want to think about is, so everybody has to replace a pump, has to replace a tank periodically, okay? So that should be considered into your rates, what, prorate you what your pumps, how much it, because I think just charging the electricity is not gonna be fair to the rest of the taxpayers in the town. I think, they're not gonna have the liability of taking care of the water pump anymore, taking care of the wire in the water pump, taking care of the pump tank and all that stuff. They're not gonna have that liability anymore. So they should be paying, what that would cost. The cost would be to replace that on a, 20-year basis or a 15-year basis. And the other thing is aqua water is, Anthony, would probably be a good source for you to check also, because they're dealing with a salt contamination also of DOT, I believe. I heard
Sorry.
rumor.
Sorry, where was that, Bruce?
Aqua water, it's a public, they're a public water source. They do several towns, and I don't quote me on it, but I think it's either Pittsfield or Palmyra that has their wells were contaminated with salt from DOT, I believe. So they can probably give you some guidance on what they've had for contracts or dealings with DOT on that also.
Thank you.
So let's see what we can get from DOT, because we do need to regroup with them. And figure out what we're gonna do between now and November. All right, thank you, folks, for everyone's input.
And just bear the other thing though, we gotta think about is basically DOT. It's told us that if this project next year, the rate, the project cost goes up, they may not do it, which means they may turn around and start, if we're not gonna do this, they may start buying properties and hand us the bill for half. We don't have a choice at that point, because that's a stupid agreement for covering half of whatever it costs.
Right. All right, next we have discussion of the North Belgrade desire for public lake access. Take a motion, open that.
Second.
Moved and seconded, so open for discussion.
So I read in our comprehensive plan that Belgrade has 56.3 miles of shoreline and lakeshore frontage, and that we also receive about 60% of our tax revenue from shoreline properties. And we have less than 100 feet of public lake access for swimming. We have the North Belgrade, the Long Pond Beach, and we have some access at the rec center. And I see kids coming out of Spalding Point at the boat launch. Safe place for swimming. And I just wanted to put it on the table that there are some groups in the area that are also looking for lake access. One is Seven Lakes Alliance. And one is the Great Pond, so-called Yacht Club. And so I just thought if there is a group of, several groups of people who are looking for access for their needs, that we could at least explore the possibility of looking at some swimming access. I think it would be a huge addition to the town to have one, and it seems like since there is one in the village area, that it would be worth exploring the possibilities. If there are properties that come up for sale, if there's someone who might donate a property, and I just wanted to put it out on the table for discussion in case anybody knows of anything or we might be at all interested in. And it was encouraged in the comprehensive plan. The Parks and Rec Committee discussed it the other night in early August. It was in the minutes. And they're such a small group, they can't really take any initiative with it, but they would be in support of exploring options. So I just feel that it would be a great addition to the town. And then there are issues that would have to be raised about it. It's not all pros, there would be some possible cons. But I just thought that it would be good to look at.
Absolutely.
We can look at it, it's fine. It's just a matter of if you're gonna find any property that's gonna come up for a reasonable price.
Right. Well, and if there's a coalition of groups, get some sort of public-private partnership together, and there might be funding available with help from Cape Cod or something like that. I think the more the merrier as far as people interested in using.
At my conference last week, there was a session on public-private partnerships that I attended. And one of the takeaways that I walked away from that with is they work, but you got to find some way to monetize the project so that there is that private component is interested in it. And so as we think about how we might provide more lake access, I think we would also have to think about, is there a way that we could monetize that in some way to inject some investment dollars into that? And the example that they used at the conference was in Biddeford. They built a parking garage downtown, and the city used tax increment financing district fund to underwrite the construction cost, but they worked with investors and a capital group that brought in a group that was going to operate this parking garage and collect the revenue from it. And so that is how they managed to monetize that project in order to make it happen.
If we're gonna start looking at this, why don't we ask our moorings committee, which is made up of BLA and all of these other, ask them to start exploring it. I mean, dealing with water anyway,
Well, it's not a Morris committee, it's Lakes committee.
well, or whatever
I
it's
didn't hear what you
called.
said, no.
I said, no, it's not a Morris committee anymore, it's the Lakes
The
committee.
Lakes Committee, yeah.
So I mean, that would probably be the best place to start.
It's definitely on their radar screen, Dan. In fact, one of the Lakes Committee members called me today to talk about this very issue. Unprompted by Barbara.
All right, well, let's start looking into it and see if
If
there's
we've
something.
got the committee, I mean, I wasn't in favor of that committee to begin with.
Yeah,
If we've
let's
got them,
put
we
them to
might as
work.
well use them.
Good idea.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Instead of the beach.
Yeah, I was just thinking the same thing. Too bad we couldn't put some stipulations if they ever sell that place.
Yeah.
You can't do this unless you give us this little piece of beach.
What was that?
Can't bother with a little piece of beach.
I know.
It's like, I grew up up there.
Yeah,
And we were talking about that, and I said, boy, there's just,
if they can't sell it.
It's a big
maybe-
chunk of
maybe we could
money.
lease it. Who knows?
Yeah,
Right.
99-year lease to the town for a section of the beach.
right, that $1 a year thing or something, $1 for eternity.
So the state attorney general has sued the Boy Scout Council over that, and apparently they are entering mediation. So it remains to be seen what's going to happen with that property.
It's been a lot of controversy over the years. They sold off part of it. Originally, it was not supposed to be sold. It was supposed to go back to the people who originally donated it if they didn't want it anymore. And it's been round and round. So yeah, I'm hoping that they get to the point where they can't sell it. Then that would be a nice place for one of these conservation places to go in and, somehow the court would say, all right, you could end up with it, and they could allow the scouts still to go in camp, they could allow the town residents to go and use the beach.
Right.
It would be great.
Yeah, that would be best case scenario all the way around.
Yep.
All right, next up, we have the warrant. Take a motion, open up.
So moved.
So, yeah.
Moved and seconded. It's open for discussion. I did have. It's under card number services. It's on page 3. We have a sign for the shop and shelving for shop and lights. Is that the new office?
No, that's over at the garage.
And what sign is it?
So if you drive by the garage right now, there's a sign that's in front of some of our facilities, just identifying that as the town's maintenance garage. So it used to be, I think, up on the building, so they just moved it down to the,
Yeah, it looks nice.
yeah. So as people are driving by, they know what that facility is.
So is it, it's a new sign that we erected?
Yes,
And the sign for the park is the one,
the Village Green.
the village green. And the shelving for shopping lights, is that shelving and other stuff that's done at the maintenance garage?
Correct.
Or what are the lights?
Just so that they can see in there when the light is dim.
We didn't have lights in there before. So we were only using that building during the day?
Yeah, I mean, you know, in the summertime, of course, it's daylight a lot. In the wintertime, it gets dark so early, they need a little illumination.
And it gets light pretty late.
Oh, that's true too.
All right, next page, what were the repairs to 8 Dalton? Sorry, Jared.
Okay, so you're on page,
Page 5, nothing's big, I wasn't sure what else was ongoing with 8 Dalton, but there's like 3 in a row.
well, I do know that we had a tenant who moved out of there. And so probably went in to do some repairs. It's gonna take me a minute to find those invoices.
So do we have one that's now available for rent?
Yes, but it has recently been rented and our rental company actually increased the rate to reflect the market. And I believe they've already signed up a rent. So there was a Rust-Oleum clear gloss spray enamel, Rust-Oleum leak seal flexible rubber coating, some wasp and yellow jacket spray. This is for a prime FJ call casing 1116 of an inch. I don't know what that is. A pine clear jams that looks like, and a pine clear header that looks like something for a door.
So nothing too,
No,
I just wasn't sure if there was an issue there that.
no,
we were
but like I said,
unaware of, or-
one of the tenants who's lived there for a number of years just recently moved.
All right, and my last question, on page 8, under Christine Colson. We have concert host for Santa, are we prepaying that 300?
So it's coming out of that Santa account perhaps, and I'm not sure why it would be coming out of that, but this is part of her ongoing things where she's helped us set up all of the bands and has really worked to coordinate the band. So she's being paid $150 per concert. So that would represent 2 concerts. And then the charge above that, she will actually be performing at that concert with her band.
And for the bands, and we're paying somebody to set up the bands.
So we did not have contacts with local and area musicians. And so we relied upon Christine to help us with that endeavor.
She's got some good groups.
And you had said you did get a total of what's been spent so far, correct?
Mhm.
Did you see that, Dan? That he did get a total of what had been spent so far.
If I saw it or not.
Yeah, he sent it out.
Yeah, after the last meeting.
I'm sure I saw it. Probably went right over my head. There's 100 emails I get, 5 different email accounts.
Ricky, did you have anything on this one?
Nope, I went through it, I didn't see anything. It's elaborate.
All right, I apologize too. I opened that, but I didn't lead with the warrant number and the.
Oh, sure, so I'll take care of that. It's warrant number 97 in the amount of $629,199.46.
Thank you. Do you have
No, I just can't believe Seacoast Security charged $30 to sit on their computer and disable the code.
Yeah, that's the first time I've
I've
seen
never
that.
seen one of
where
those
we-
before.
I've not either. I didn't know if that was something new. I was, geez, I don't remember us
Is
getting charged to take a code.
Jason using Kevin Oz for doing road work? Is that what that charge was? I saw?
Yeah.
Jason, all the hours and escalators changes. That was just to do stuff on Depot Road.
A lot of it was, yeah. But, and this was in, I think, the last update that I sent you after the last meeting. As of the last meeting and the warrants that were paid then, we'd only used about 18% of our road maintenance budget. And so I think there was $127,000 left to spend, and so he's starting to use that.
Because we don't have to use them.
We don't.
We don't need to find projects to use it up with.
We don't, but that work on the Depot Road specifically was to prepare that road for paving in 2022.
Doesn't seem like it was that long ago. We just paid that one.
Morris Childs has a story to tell about that road that we did something with that road that was against his better judgment that didn't end up serving the town very well.
So does that mean that this year when the frost caves come, that there will not be the culvert jump on that road? Is that the culvert that got replaced?
Well, they replaced two culverts on that road. One is near the school and the other is closer to the south end of the road.
Which is Route 27 now?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the jump. All right, if nobody else has anything, Barbara? Yes. Ricky?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, 4 yeses. All right, next up we have the town manager's report.
So along with that, I do want to bring up, and we just received this bill today for $35,000 from Hudson for work on the Wings Mills Dam repair. And the dams committee was pressing us to go ahead and approve this. I said, we don't have a warrant ready. And so I said, I will tell the select board about it. If you guys want to approve a warrant, which would be warrant number 98 for this amount, and authorize me to sign it, we will execute it tomorrow. Otherwise, we will wait until September the 7th.
And that work was just recently completed?
So this invoice is dated August the 12th. We received it today. So had we received it in a timely fashion, and we reminded the dams committee, we pay bills on the first and third Tuesdays of the month.
If it's not imperative that it goes, then let's hang on to it, put it on September
Okay.
7th.
Town manager report. So I'm emailed you guys about this today, just so you have a little background about it, but we interviewed library director candidates yesterday, most of the day. And on that panel was myself and Barbara Allen, Diane Dowd, who is the president of the Library Trustees Board, Stacy Whitcomb Smith, who's a member of that board, and Judy Johnson, who's the co-president of the Friends of the Library. We had 3 excellent candidates, all from this area, all with working library experience. Any one of them could have done the job, but it was the consensus of the interview panel afterwards that Jared Bond, who for the past 10 years has served as our library assistant, is the best choice. He has by far more public library experience than any of the other candidates. And he knows our library, so he'll be able to hit the ground running. And Barbara can chime in here too, but I think he blew the panel away with how thoughtful he was in articulating a vision and a mission for our library that will include more programming, more frequent programming, and the development of a collection that is diverse and thoughtful and representative of our patrons. So under the job description for library director, it says that the library director is hired by the town manager, approved by the select board. I would like to hire Jared as our next library director, and I'm asking for your approval.
I move that we hire Jared, that position.
Yeah, I'm like, you got mine hands down. I was like, yes, he finally said yes to putting his hat in the ring. So I'm a yes for that.
Or are you seconding it or?
I'll second
Okay.
And there's no formally we have to that I said, I felt like last time the director was hired and then brought to the meeting and we were like, welcome.
Yeah. It's supposed to be the other way around. We're supposed to approve the candidate and then allow that candidate to hire.
That's right,
It's
but
supposed to be
apparently in 2019, the way we worded it is not like that. So I said, well, we didn't think that. But Ricky, what are your thoughts?
Oh,
4, perfect. All right, 4 fours. You're stuck now.
Excellent.
You want him to give a speech?
And do you want to tell us why you want to be? I'm just teasing. I'm glad you finally, decided to.
Are any of the other candidates interested in the assistant?
Well, they all have full-time jobs, and that's not a full-time job. Now, luckily, just recently hired a woman named Kim Dawes, who's recently retired as a literacy educator in the Augusta Public Schools, Belgrade resident. And so she is going to be one of our 2 library assistants, and she just started today, and we're very impressed by her already as well. I think she's going to do great things, especially to help us develop our children and our young adult collections. So she's going to be a great help to us. And now that we have a library director, we will start advertising for another assistant.
All right, thank you.
All right. You're welcome.
Run and be free.
Have a great day.
You too, thanks, Jared.
So otherwise, I just wanted to mention 3 things from my conference last week with the Maine Town and City Managers Association. One is I got an opportunity to talk with the town's attorney, Phil Socher from Bernstein Sure. And that conversation was off the clock. We weren't being billed for it. But I was telling him about our concerns about our legal bills this year. And he said, Anthony, there is something that we do for 5 other towns that we could consider doing for you. And that is that they set a set fee for the year for legal services based, and I can't recall if it was a 3 or 5 year average of what our expenses have been. And those expenses would cover everything that we asked them to do with the exception of litigation. So if we take someone to court, if someone takes us to court, that would be in addition to this expense. But if we had an ordinance review that we wanted them to conduct, that would be part of that expense. If we had personnel issues we needed their advice on, that would be part of the expense. If we needed legal opinions, if we wanted their attorneys to come and participate in a planning board meeting or an appeals board meeting, all of those things would be covered by this set fee. And so just so you know, I've asked Bill to go ahead and calculate what that would be for us. And I'm going to bring that to you as soon as he does that, hopefully by the next meeting, so that we can begin considering if that's something we want to do in 2022.
Yeah, we don't see the fluctuation that we see now.
Right. So that was
You said
one.
that would be an average, based on an average of.
Yeah, the 3 or 5 years, I can't recall which it is.
So first it'll be on the high end because the last 3 to 5 years, it seems like.
Yeah. Well, and some of those expenses haven't been from Bernstein Sure. They've been, because we used Mike Hodgins after he changed
Right.
firms. Mr. Goodman's work from another firm. So not all those costs are associated with Bernstein Sure, but I think it could help us get a handle on escalating legal fees. So number 2 is I also attended a road maintenance seminar, And that was very constructive, and it was led by the Public Works Director from Gardner. And so I'm gonna be talking with the roads committee about, he said the two most cost-effective things we can do to maintain our roads are crack sealing and chip sealing. So, and we need to develop a schedule for when those things occur after we pave the road. So that was very instructive. And the last thing, and I would recommend doing this until next spring after the next town meeting, because we're gonna obviously elect a select board member in November. We're gonna elect 2 select board members in March. And I got some really good ideas about some visioning and goal setting by the select board. And the consultant who led this session gave a really good analogy, I thought. Think of that exercise as booking a flight. And when you're booking a flight, you're typically thinking of 3 things. Where are we going? What's our destination? What's the timeline for getting there? And how much are we willing to spend? And I think if we could come up with, a set of 3 to 5 goals for that, for the town, I think that, I know just from my perspective, that would really help focus our efforts on things that are of high priority to the select board. So just putting that out there for right now. And I see you've already got the signatures. I was just gonna ask you to make sure you sign everything.
So Ricky, are you able to come by the town office and sign these?
Yeah, I guess I can. I wondered why I didn't get it. Why can't we still do it electronically? You can't do that?
Well, I asked the MMA about that, and they said once we started meeting in person, we needed to go back to signing things in person.
You only need 3 signatures anyway. If I get there, I get there.
Well, there are a couple of letters that we would like your signature, Rick.
I'll do my best.
I can bring them to you if that would be helpful.
Hey, Melanie, I just sent you a text message that I just got. You might want to read it. It's from Keystone LLC. And why the bill didn't get there in time, I guess. It's not the dam's fault. You can read it if you want.
Yeah. Okay, so this says that was not the dam committee's fault. It was Hodgson's for not submitting it. I really need that paid. I've spent a lot of money on that project, and September 7th is a ways away. The invoice is from Cavestone LLC, but Hodgson is the engineer. So I guess. I'll make
It's a
motion.
small company, so I mean, if it's a mistake, it's a mistake. We've done it before, so.
Guess I'll make a
So
motion.
it would be warrant number 98, in the amount of $34,903.95. And I might suggest that you also authorize the town manager to sign that so we can get it done tomorrow.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. Any further discussion? It's Tapper's.
I'm just saying, we keep telling people things have to be in by a certain date. I understand it's not the damage committees. It's the other people's fault. It's people gotta understand. You gotta get this stuff in within a year.
We'll send an email to this engineering firm just reminding them of that.
I think what we need to do is when we hire any company, we send them something at that point every time.
Pay schedule date. Yes.
Yeah, we don't have to keep messing with this stuff.
Yeah. All right, Barbara?
Yes.
Yes.
Dan said yes. Ricky?
Yes.
All right.
Thanks.
All right. Anybody have anything else? All right, seeing now, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Oh, sorry, Dan,
Yes.
Barbara?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, good night.
Night.